Welcome back everyone to the Ready or Not lore series, where in today's episode we'll be discussing the new 213 park. This video will be divided up into two sections, the first being all in-game / developer confirmed information, and the second being my own theories as to where the story and world may go in the future. Detectives have been following a new lead to locate a key source of methamphetamine storage in Los Sueños, tracing it back to the affordable housing development in 213 Park. The prime suspect is an unknown male who goes by the alias of John Doe, and is the only known man Julio, the one in charge of this operation, turns to when he needs someone interrogated or disposed of. Little is known about this man, however, he is a patched member of the Rebel Rejects, a well-known bike organization within the city. If John Doe is inside either structure, he could provide the LSPD with invaluable information. On site, there are no known civilians besides potentially aggressive junkies. With that covered, let's listen to the briefing.
Gear up, boys. Our detectives just hit the jackpot following a new lead for methamphetamine production in 213 Park and need some door kickers for the job. They booked this tweaking gangbanger for shooting up a 4U station the other day. The fool had a note in his pocket all about this meth lab in 213 Park. He was planning on spending his earnings from the robbery up there.
How do we know it's legit?
Good question. Well, as our luck would have it, a uniformed patrol just happened to drive near the house a few days ago and picked up what they presumed was a hit-and-run victim by the side of the road. It turned out he was a runner for the guys that run the neighborhood. He admitted everything while in the back of the ambulance. He was in a bad way and wanted to clear his conscience. He'd pocketed the cash from this big deal he'd overseen. He was planning on skipping town with this hooker or something like that. They tortured him in the attic of this house and left him for dead. Once the hospital got him stabilized, he sang like a bird. He told us everything he could about this place in exchange for immunity.
What sort of premises are we dealing with?
We're dealing with multiple. There are two properties, both empty. One went into foreclosure and somehow got lost in the bank's systems. Nobody's touched it since. The second is a house just to the north. The family was killed during a robbery on their way to the airport. The house was being fumigated, and it sat that way empty ever since. Nobody seems to want the thing, but they're just the top layer. Our boy Reese managed to explain that there's a secret garage built under the property. That's where the heaviest footfall is happening. That's where we need to be. We've got the house under surveillance, but Reese gave us the core opening hours. That's when we move. The orders are to arrest at least 2 suspects at the property for detectives to pursue this investigation. We nail them and get this lab shut down, and it's a big check in the win column. We won't be welcome in this part of town. I'm sure most of you here know how its residents feel about police presence, so this will be a big crackdown. Be advised that we have no information on suspects or civilians other than the possibility many will be under the influence of methamphetamine and be highly erratic and potentially violent on contact. Not to mention gang activity, meaning the presence of firearms on persons within the meth house, so I would advise you proceed with extreme caution. We don't want to cause a riot, and lethal force is only permissible as a defensive measure. Am I clear on that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I want us to split into 3 teams. First team, I want you to take the first property. Sweep it. Arrest anybody that gets in your way. I want that house cleared and the garage held. Nobody gets in and nobody gets out until we've processed them. This mission is just as much about making a statement to the 213 district as it is about anything else.
So, this map now ties directly into the 4U gas station, as one of the suspects involved in that incident was directly responsible for tipping off the LSPD with this intel. I assume it was most likely Jaden Fletcher, due to his history of drug abuse, though a name is never given. We also learned that during a standard patrol near 213 Park, an officer picked up a presumed hit-and-run victim who turned out to be an ex-runner for those operating out of the neighborhood. This man, whose name is Reese, gave the following statement.
I was asked to do a drop at this house down in 213. I don't remember the address. I dropped off the product and took the cash. I was supposed to bring it back to the main house. That's where they run the logistics side of things. But I needed the cash. I pocketed it and stashed it in this place I found. I was planning on taking Reba and Archie and getting out of town. The fresh start. Get away from the locos and the Johns knocking on her door all day and night. She could be a mama and I don't know. They came looking for me quicker than I thought. When the money didn't come in, Julio sent them to find me. I hid in this apartment. Everyone knows about it. All the users hide up there when they need a place to crash. It was empty. I guess they maybe cleared it out before I arrived. They came in and grabbed me. I didn't see who, but I can take a good guess. Julio uses the same few guys to do his heavy hitting. When I woke up, I was there. In the attic. That's where they do their work. I was tied to a table. Julio was there, but so was this other guy, Frank. That's all he goes by. Nobody ever sees him, but we all know what he does. He's a surgeon and a butcher in one. They wanted to know where the money was, but I couldn't tell them. I needed it. I had to get out of this city. It eats you alive. And now, with Archie, he deserves better than a junkie and a whore for parents. I've been there. I don't want that for him.
I understand, Mr. Haynes, but can you try to stay focused? This house, where was it?
Right. Sorry. The house. This is a different one. It's the lab. Well, the lab is underground in his hidden garage. They're cooking all the time down there. Then they open for business at night. Direct visits come late at night. You know, the bigger clients. You know what I'm saying? I was in the attic. It's where she used to live. Now it's where they take the people they need information from. I don't know what happened or why they left. Maybe I was dead. Maybe I was resurrected for a second chance. Fuck if I know. But I was alive and alone. The rest is a blur. I can't remember anything after I fell through the attic. I remember seeing her up there. But it couldn't have been. She's been quiet for too long. Maybe I was seeing things. But the next thing I knew, I was in the hospital. Ain't never been happier to see the cops in all my life.
You're doing great, Reese. These houses, where are they? Are they connected?
I can't remember the address, but I could show you. Never been good with names. They're connected to the business. One is the lab and storefront, and the other is where Julio and his boys operate things. The lab is at the back. It's all done up, ready to be fumigated. You can't miss it. Hiding in plain sight, you know?
That's great. This is helpful, Reese. Can you think of anything else?
No. It hurts. I'm tired. Can I go to sleep now?
So, this further confirms Los Locos' heavy involvement in the 213 Park area, and gives us a name of one of the potential leaders of the gang, this man named Julio. We don't get much else on this elusive Julio, but based on what he did or had done to Reese, he's definitely not a man to cross. Reese also mentioned a man named Frank, who may or may not be this mysterious John Doe suspect. I assume he is, but it's not confirmed. Arriving on the scene, we discover a few new changes. Echo's laundromat is now inaccessible. In prior versions of the game, this area was fully explorable. In fact, the whole layout is now a lot more open. The two houses are now fully accessible, whereas before, specific game modes opened up one house and blocked off the other. The shack in the backyard the tunnel leads to now only lets you explore the ground floor, and the stairs to the second level are now blocked off. And speaking of changes, near the laundromat, the large spider symbol is now missing. The same goes for the one inside the house. I'll go over theories for what that likely means here in a little bit. As for the house, there's nothing really new. Downstairs is basically the same, upstairs too. The only small thing I could find is in Molly's room. That thing that I couldn't mention in the last video that a lot of you guys commented on is now partially covered up. If you don't know what that is, just go read some of the comments on the prior 213 Park video. Looking at the fumigated house in the tunnel, there's also nothing new, so let's look at some evidence. First, we have a sample jar of the product. It's a jar containing shards of Los Locos methamphetamine. A handwritten label includes the weight of the product, the street value, the location of the finding, the date it was collected, and the forensic specialist who collected it. Next, we have a text exchange on the phone of one of the meth cooks. It's entirely in Spanish and is dedicated to a Los Locos boss. The phone appears to have been broken, but has been repaired by the LSPD to recover the information within it. The text is pretty hard to make out, but I was able to translate the gist of what they were saying. So basically, the cook was texting his boss in the middle of the raid, telling him that the LSPD are here and the addicts are holding them off. The boss says something to the effect of, "Tell me who you are with, and I will tell her who you are, Lewis. I warned him about the fucking Americans you're selling the product to." The cook then says they need to pack up their operations because they're fucked. The boss then says, "Delete your messages and destroy your phone." He then says something like, if he sees the guy who fucked them over cross again, he'll drown him in the water or something like that. The last few lines are pretty hard to read. And finally, we have the cooking man, a piece of aging paper found in the child's coloring book. A picture of a man on fire can be seen with the text above the man reading 1997, which is likely a reference to the 1997 Los Sueños fire, which killed hundreds of residents within the 213 Park area. And that is basically everything new on this map. There wasn't much, but there is still some things we can discuss. First, I want to briefly discuss this 1997 Los Sueños fire. It was said to have killed hundreds of residents, and while the map takes place nearly 30 years later, I assume the area never financially recovered. The fire destroyed homes, businesses, and infrastructure, most likely leading to significant economic losses. When these businesses were destroyed, it probably led to increased unemployment rates, and for those that did survive the fire, there was probably a decline in revenue as well. All in all, the fire turned a probably once good neighborhood into an economic nightmare, resulting in affordable housing being developed on the ashes of what once was. And after 30 years, all that remains is a slum. While this isn't all that important to the overall story with the gangs and the secret government agencies and etc., it does paint us a little better picture of the lore of Los Sueños and why some areas are worse than others. Anyway, going back to the spider, or lack thereof, this could mean that the spider now has little to no involvement with this operation. Before, we theorized that maybe the drugs funneled through Port Hoken were being sent here and the spider was tainting them to potentially experiment on the junkies. Now, with the spider gone, I think the big conspiracy I was working with is basically null and void. It was a fun theory, but now with absolutely zero signs of the spider being involved, it's safe to say that theory is busted. Moving on to the text exchange, I think when the boss says he'll give her their names, it's implying he'll give their attorney their names, so they could potentially get out quicker. This boss doesn't seem to care about the meth heads on site and only cares about those who work for him, so much so that he's already in the process of trying to get them a lighter sentence. He also mentions that, "I warned him about selling to the Americans." Who this him is most likely someone within the Los Locos organization, who wanted to expand their operations into Los Sueños. The boss probably told him that it was too risky, but he went forward with the operation anyway. Now, this could mean two things. One, the person who started this operation was Julio, and the big boss is someone else and wants to kill him for his stupidity. Or, the big boss is Julio, and someone else convinced him to start operations in 213 Park, and it went horribly wrong, and now Julio is going to kill that guy. Either way, with the LSPD raid on the meth house being complete, disrupting the Los Locos operations, it's safe to say that 213 Park meth operations are officially a bust.